Hello and welcome back to season 2 of the podcast at the card table, where we discuss creation, practice, performance, and history with the greatest minds in Magic. I'm incredibly excited to let you know that this episode is also brought to you by MAGICBOX. They have all of your Magic needs covered, from the latest releases to absolute classics and all of the extras you could possibly need to keep you going. Make sure to check them out and use code PATCT at the checkout. That is PATCT at checkout for 10% off your next order. Until then, on with the episode. Today's guest is a performer, videographer, YouTuber, and creator, having built a reputation for combining thorough teaching, in-depth analysis, and a genuine love for the craft into one of the most accessible Magic channels online. But away from the camera, he's also a working magician, performing both close-up and stage performances, having recently taken his show The Honest Magician to the Edinburgh Fringe, completing a sell-out run. It is, of course, the amazing Cavan Booth. How are we doing today, Cavan? You well?
Thank you very much. Thank you. I never know what to do during those intros where people are making you sound much better than you are. But
like,
thank you. Thank you for the
Not a problem
kind
at all.
words.
You are doing good things. So
well, thank you.
You should be on the receiving end of that. Obviously, we are going to start at the very beginning. We're going to go back to young Cavan, and we are going to look at your origin story. So why Magic, and how did you get into it?
Yeah, okay. Start at the beginning. A very good place to start. I got into Magic for a few different reasons that all kind of came together at once. The first, as viewers of my YouTube channel will be all too familiar with, is a Marvin's Magic kit. I got a little tin, 50 amazing magic tricks. I got hooked on that, learned every single trick in there, just kind of used the heck out of this thing until it was just completely destroyed, basically. And then, yeah, it was just one magic kit after another. But around that time, there was like Dynamo, I think, was on TV, and Penn and Teller might have been on TV. I remember, watching videos on the family computer. Remember the family computer? What happened to the family computer?
Yeah.
Now everyone's got their own computer in their
that
pocket.
One giant communal thing in the corner of the living room.
Ours was in the attic. I don't know why.
No.
Ours was up in the attic, where I think it had to be because of like the Wi-Fi or something. It was like plugged into the the Ethernet. So yeah, I had to climb up into the attic, watching Penn and Teller videos and all sorts on YouTube. And yeah, I think YouTube played a big part into why I got into Magic, as it does for still lots of people today. And yeah, it just got me. You as soon as you've got the fever, you just can't shake it off, can you?
Yeah, 100%. It's a deep rabbit hole that you end up tumbling down. Was there a progression, obviously, from the Marvin's Magic kit, learning from YouTube? Was there then a progression where you started looking at, obviously, professional products, going to magic shops? What was the sort of natural progression from there, sort of bridging the gap to where you are now?
Yeah, luckily there was a magic shop not far away from me, Magic World, which was in Stockport, which was where I grew up. I grew up in Stockport, just south of Manchester. So it was a real brick and mortar magic shop. What a rare thing. They don't exist anymore, or hardly. So I did go in there a couple of times. My nana took me in a couple of times, just kind of as a treat, and I'd get the odd thing. I remember getting the cube thing from Stephen Brundage. I mean, that was probably quite a few years into my obsession with Magic, but that I just became obsessed with Rubik's Cube Magic. And, I performed that on stage at like a school talent show, and, any opportunity to sort of annoy people with magic tricks, I pretty much took that. As soon as people at school found out about it, because I kind of kept it secret for a while out of sort of not shame, but just like I was, this nerdy little lonely teenage kid. And I was like, I'm just going to kind of keep this to myself. But eventually I sort of had the confidence to, show a couple of people, and then the secret got out. I was like the magic kid at school and whatever. So, did the odd thing. And yeah, I guess professional products played into it a little bit, maybe, but not massively. I remember getting from my best friend's dad, who was a magician, just by coincidence, this like brick of bicycle playing cards. He just gave me that, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's the best thing ever, like proper playing cards.
£100 nowadays.
Oh, I know, crazy. Just gave it to me, and I was like, that was amazing. So I remember just performing card tricks with a real pack of cards for the first time and being like, wow, yeah, this feels like I'm a pro. I'm not using ones that have that sort of Marvin's Magic little back design, those little bridge size ones. It's like proper stuff. That felt really, really exciting. So yeah, it all kind of snowballed from there, I guess.
It's such a weird thing how much like the perception of magic's changed. Like as you mentioned there, keeping magic on the down low because it was weird and nerdy and like I certainly got picked on for doing magic when I was younger. But now like if you go out and somebody finds out you're a magician, it's immediately like, oh my god, that's so cool. Like show me something. And the perspective change has been really strange. I don't know whether like young kids would still pick on other young kids
Well,
for
yeah,
doing
that's the
magic, or
thing.
if it's just more like
Yeah. I don't know. I don't
socially
know if it's
accepted.
just a thing when you're an adult, magic is perceived as cooler. Because you doing it as an adult, it's like, okay, this is actually like a proper thing. Like you've dedicated a lot of time to this. I think other adults have respect for that, you know, as they do for anything. Anyone who's really good at something, they're like, wow, that's really cool. You know, anyone who can play guitar really well, it's like, that's really cool. But yeah, as a kid, it's like magic. You know, yeah, you're doing like, why are you doing magic? Like, it is seen as
Pick a football. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's seen as the, you know, the unpopular kids thing. You know, it's if you're a popular kid at school, you don't need to do magic. There's no need for you to do it. You're already there. You can talk to people. You can approach people. Whatever. And I was speaking, and I've spoken about in a recent video, this sort of idea that magic is the promise of social interaction, and so, you know, as a little kid, that's very enticing. You go, oh yeah, you know, magic, amazing. But the popular sporty kids, they have no need for it. So it does draw those sort of dick brains, to coin a Darren Brown term. You know, it attracts those people, and I was definitely one of those, 100%.
And I think 99% of the people listening were probably also dick brains.
Yes, yeah, dick brains unites. That's what Darren Brown does.
Such a wonderful show.
So such a lovely routine as well.
We are going to jump into a quick fire segment in which we're going to learn a little bit more about you, a little bit more about your magical taste. As I mentioned before we started this is quick fire.
Yeah,
it never stays quick.
I can't promise anything.
But that's not a problem at all. We love a little ramble and a little detour on this podcast.
Excellent.
So first one is, what is your favorite sleight?
I've got to say, I think the second deal, and not because I use it the most, but just there's something very satisfying about it. There's something very satisfying about doing it, and kind of almost nostalgically, I made a video on the second deal. I made a few videos on the second deal, and that was one of the first videos that really took off for me. And I was almost like the second deal guy for about 2 weeks on YouTube, and that felt quite cool. So yeah, I'm going to say the second deal, but it's very difficult to choose. There's a lot that I use a lot more often that are very, very powerful.
Yeah, 100%. I think the second deal is one of those moves that's so underexplored and underutilized, because there are so many other applications for the second deal that aren't just dealing the second card.
Yeah.
Like utilizing it for, or like semi-utilizing it for replacing a double lift. I utilize the second deal so much more than I do a double lift now. Just because I find it cleaner in a lot of circumstances. So I think it's one of those things that, as you say, feels very tactile and very satisfying to like actually do, which makes it like really fun to perform. But I think, yeah, the scope and space for that move in particular, I still think is underexplored. So
yeah,
it's a very good choice in at number one there.
Excellent.
The next one is your favorite plot. Do you have a particular favorite plot in Magic? This doesn't necessarily have to be like cards or coins. It could be a general plot. What is your favorite plot?
I am gonna cause a decent percent of the listeners to groan when I say this, but I say it proudly. Any card at any number. I'm going to go with ACAN. I think it is my favorite plot, and I thought about this for a while because there's a lot of, I love book tests just as a genre, and there's some really great specific plots within book tests, and Ambitious Card came to mind. I do like Ambitious Card. I've fallen back into that recently, sort of went off it for quite a few years. But ACAN, it's a classic. It's an audience pleaser. Lay people love it. They absolutely love it. And I know magicians go, oh, it's overdone. It's this, it's that, whatever. Actually, you show it to a layperson, they've never seen anything like it before. And that's the case with most tricks, unfortunately, is that they've never seen anything like it before. I wish that people had seen more magic when I show them magic in a way, because they'd kind of appreciate it more. But they've never seen anything like it, and it is completely impossible. Done correctly, there's no way of wrapping their head around it. And even when sometimes I see an ACAN and I'm like, I actually don't know how that one was done. There's so many ways of doing it.
Yeah.
You could almost do 10 back to back using different methods that all cancel each other out. And just, it's completely simple and impossible. I love effects that are just direct. You can explain it in one sentence. ACAN's so good you can explain it in one little acronym. It's literally just, it is what it is. Any card, any number. I love the simplicity of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that certainly contributes to how hard it hits with lay people. Like that immediate understanding of, I'm going to name a number and my card is going to be at that number. Like, and you get the sort of build up of tension because they're like, I know exactly what's coming. Like, I can't wait for this payoff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just on the point of being able to do 10 of them back to back. I don't know if it was on this podcast or on a podcast I listened to, but somebody mentioned one of the games that they used to play with their brother was just going out to like bars or clubs and taking a specific plot and performing it to the same group in as many different varieties as possible until one of them went, aren't you doing the same trick as before? It's like a creative exercise.
Oh, that's
great. They would take it and they'd just like try and do the same plot over and over again and see how many different versions of that plot they could do before somebody called them out on it being
that's a really good idea.
Exactly
Wow.
the same effect, which I think is a really cool premise in itself.
I think it proves how presentation changes everything. You change the presentation of the same plot and it suddenly feels like a completely different trick. I think you could definitely do that with ACAN. I have a few different versions of ACAN that I perform and yeah, they feel totally different to each other. And sometimes I will happily perform different ones in the same evening at a gig or whatever. And it does feel like I'm doing a different trick. If those two groups, I wouldn't perform the same one to the same group, but if those two groups that saw two different versions spoke to each other about the tricks, they'd assume they saw completely different tricks, which is really, really nice. Yeah, it's so versatile as well. And like I say, it's the simplicity of it. And like you've touched on, if you can explain it in one sentence, if a spectator can explain it back to themselves, the effect, and go, that's all that happened. And he didn't do anything else. I didn't see him do any funny moves. There wasn't any weirdness. It just happened. Like one of the best compliments I've ever got really early on was from my dad when I first showed him a trick. And I think it was like the invisible deck or something simple like that. And he just said, you didn't do anything. Like, and that was one of the best compliments I got. He couldn't see, nothing had happened. I opened the pack, spread them out. One was the wrong way around. It was his card. He was like, you didn't do anything. Like, that's impossible. And that's what people are expecting Magic to be. They expect you to do something. So when you don't, they can't explain it with anything, a gimmick maybe, but they don't understand what that could be. I love simplicity in Magic, definitely.
I think it brings it as close to being like real Magic as it can be.
Yeah.
It's like, if you could actually do this for real, one, why are you using a deck of cards? Because you could literally do anything. But that's a different point. But like, if you could actually do this for real, there would be no process. There would be, like, you would just go, okay, spread the cards. Your card's facing the other way. And that's as close as it can get to that. And I think people sort of resonate with that as well. They're like, wait a second. I was looking for sleight of hand. I was looking for dodgy decks. And it's not there. So how did that just happen? So yeah, I think that's massive. One thing that I am going to question you on, I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Go on.
Do you have a particular favorite any card at any number? And I think I might know your answer here. But do you have a particular favorite?
Yeah, I mean, there's an obvious answer that would that would lead to a nice bit of promo, but I'm gonna surprise you and not say that one, which is simply a shuffled deck, a control, a second deal. I think that's the purest any card at any number, because as they're shuffling, they think of a card, they think of a number. I take the cards back, I just deal through. It's there. I do that a lot more, I think, than I would do Archon, which is any card at any number I released. There's another one that's sort of in the works that I want to release potentially, although I know there's a bit of Archon fatigue going on, but I still think it's really good. And the more options out there, the better. But you can't go wrong with simplicity and sleight of hand. And I've taught a few on my YouTube channel that I perform regularly at gigs, and they just fry people. And yes, they are more difficult. You know, they require more sleight of hand, whatever. But it works, and if you can do it, it's just so utterly entertaining. It's really it's fun to watch them watch it. You know,
Yeah,
one of those.
and I think that attests also to like having that muscle memory, especially when it comes to moves like the second deal. Sitting and just drilling that on repeat whilst you're watching TV or something like that. So it gets to the point where you can just switch off from what your hands are doing and really sort of take in the audience, because even when you are relaxed, they feel that relaxation and then they go, "He can't be doing sleight of hand because he was talking to us and he was watching us and he was interacting." Like, surely his brain wasn't doing both at the same time.
That's the thing that most beginner magicians, myself included, when I started out, that's the thing they get wrong is that guilt. When they do a sleight, I might not even know what the sleight is. I might not have seen it, but I'll know when it happened because they shut down. They do this thing where they literally like they go inside themselves and you can see it in their eyes, like I'm doing something, and then they're back and then they're presenting again. And I've seen it even on stage with magicians who are really famous and have got huge careers. I've been like, oh, you just did something then, because I fully just saw you like tense for a second, you know. It's
like a 2-second buffer, so that all wheels going around in the middle, and you're like, yeah, I'm back.
The best example I've ever seen of that, and I'm not going to call the magician out particularly, but there's again any card at any number that requires a lot of mental maths. And there's this amazing performance video of this magician, the guy who created it, performing it. And he's just kind of away with the fairies and talking really slowly and padding time as he's trying to do this calculation. And he just vanishes. He literally is gone. Like the spectator's looking right at him and he's just like, he doesn't know where he is. He's just doing the maths in his head. And then he comes back and he starts performing. It's like, whoa, where did you go just now? Like, what are you doing? It's so obvious that something like has been going on in your head. You know,
it's one thing I still really struggle with when it comes to like counting in secret during tricks. Like if I'm having to keep track of a count in my head whilst doing something, my brain can't talk and count at the same time.
Yeah.
So 9 times out of 10, I just go into silence and I'm like, okay, I'm never doing that again, because that is quite obvious. Something is occurring there.
Yeah.
Or one thing that I realized as well in looking at, like whenever I practice, if I'm working on a new move or anything like that, I'll always sit in front of a camera, I'll video it, I'll watch it back, change the camera angles, make sure that it's good from all places. One of my main tells is I often blink when I perform a sleight, like on the sleight, which is really frustrating for practice, and it's the reason I use a camera, because to me I go, yeah, that looked seamless. Yeah, of course it looked seamless. Your eyes were closed during the moment the thing happened. Like, wow, no wonder. Yeah. So yeah, I think figuring out what your tell is and figuring out what your like sort of suppression is during those moments and being able to work that out, whether it's through muscle memory or just like relentless practice, is a massive thing to get sort of out of your system as soon as possible.
Yeah, my tell was always a lot of tension, but leaning back. I'd always just lean back a little bit too much, because I knew that if I leant back a little bit, and it is still a great psychological thing that when you do lean back just a tad, your audience are relaxed. They sort of feel like this isn't kind of part of the performance. I've almost got two modes, and it's like the on and off beat really. But it's like if I'm here, the trick is like happening, I'm leaning forwards, I'm focused on it, and then there's like I'm just kind of talking now. This isn't really part of the magic, and it's a very subtle difference, maybe even just a few inches. What I used to do was like this,
like a Neo Matrix lean.
Like I was really just like leaning back, and my arms would go really straight, because I was like, the further this pack of cards is away from me,
the less obvious it is.
Yeah, the less obvious it is. But obviously, it's getting closer to them. So it was very, very strange. But yeah, definitely anyone practicing, film themselves, watch it back. You're going to see stuff you never even thought about doing. I've been doing that a lot recently. In fact, yesterday I got about 4 hours of footage of me rehearsing, talking the whole time. It wasn't just silent practice. It was like actual rehearsal and I was filming it, and it totaled 4 hours of footage just from yesterday. I film a lot of things just to watch it back, make notes, whatever. And it's the most helpful thing I think you can do as a performer, because you are seeing it then as an outside person. If you watch yourself enough, you're seeing it almost like a third person. Yeah. Like when I'm editing videos now, I don't, you know how some people cringe when they hear their own voice?
Yeah.
I don't get that anymore. I've heard my own voice for hours on end. Yeah. I know what I sound like, and I don't get that anymore. So yeah, you should get used to your own performance and be able to see it as an outsider almost. You know, when you're watching it, it's like, it's not really me. I'm just analyzing this thing, you know?
One of the best practical exercises I heard of recently was like a 3-step exercise, and it was film yourself performing, play it, but turn your phone face down so you can only hear the audio the first time. Second time, only watch the video and mute the video. And third time, transcribe it and only read what you're saying. Because you get 3 very different performances by doing that, but then taking the things that you're doing visually with the things that you're doing audibly, with the way that you're actually saying things, by making those micro changes in those 3 different parts and then bringing them back together, you get a more complete sort of look at the performance, as opposed to like just being swarmed with like everything that's going on and just being
that's really good. Yeah, that's really good. I guess I've kind of done that unknowingly. I didn't know about that specific technique, but that's almost like, it sounds almost like a drama school thing. That sounds like something they might do at drama school. Like, you know,
I'm pretty sure it is.
Isolate the different elements. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, I can't remember who I heard it from, but I'm pretty sure they sourced a drama activity book, like a games for drama students.
Yeah, 100%.
Get better, which is, I think it's super fun exercise to do.
I've been thinking about doing something similar for magicians as well, and I'm not sure what it would be, if it would be a book or a video course. Most likely a video course, just to, because all right, magicians are actors, right? That's very famous saying. But I actually like to leave it as just magicians are actors, because I think we are. I think we are just actors. Okay, yeah, we're playing the part of magicians, fine. But at the end of the day, I think almost to be a good magician, you've got to be a good actor. It's a skill anyone can learn. It's not inherently inbuilt in anyone. But getting better as a magician is getting better as an actor. You're selling a lie. You're selling a performance, a deception, a piece of theater. You know, even if it's just at the dinner table, it's a piece of fiction. You need to understand how to make that as convincing as possible. And in order to, you know, sort of understanding magic really is understanding that it's not just one genre. I think a lot of magicians get stuck into thinking that magic is a genre. No, it's not. That's like saying music is a genre. That makes no sense. There's loads of subgenres within that, and there's constantly ones being created. You know, as a magician, can you try and find a genre that hasn't been performed before? And I think actually we're lucky in the sense that it's quite easy to do that. There's hardly any. There's hardly any magicians compared to musicians, right? There's a lot more musicians. So I always like to compare the two and go, well, is there a genre in music that hasn't been done in magic? You know, and sort of make it almost like a mirror image. You know, so is there an Ed Sheeran equivalent in magic? Is there, you know, I'm trying to think of something really old.
I mean, like acoustic only, just a deck of cards, no gimmicks. Like,
and then is there a Daft Punk in magic? You know, is there a super electronic lasers? You know, there's so many different ways of doing it.
No Wi-Fi connection, bad signal.
Exactly. So just trying to translate it, I think, is quite an interesting activity, because we're actors at the end of the day, and it can be whatever you want it to be.
And I think that perfectly replicates to like film as well. I mean, inspiration can be taken from absolutely anywhere, but the logical one there is like film is a perfect framing for an effect, because you literally have like the plot there for you. You just have to match the effect to it. But I think looking at it from a musical perspective is a really strange but really cool way to look at it.
Yeah, I don't know why I've always done it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where that's come from really, but yeah.
Very strange. I look forward to looking into that a little more.
I know this is meant to be quick fire. I told you I'd ramble. I'm sorry about that.
It's all right. Oh, the next one is, do you have a particular favorite book? I don't know if you're a massive reader yourself. I certainly have become more so as I've gotten older. But do you have a particular favorite book? Whether it's something that you go back to all the time, maybe something nostalgic.
It's got to be something nostalgic for me. I'm gonna say expert card technique.
Classic.
I think that it's actually not written in too much of a fancy way. Some of them are written in a language almost that's quite impenetrable. You know, I think any magic book that insists on calling a deck of cards pasteboards, that's
Maybe
a
a little
massive
outdated.
that's a massive ick for me. I know it's said quite a few times in expert card technique, I'm sure, but it seems more accessible. It was one of the first I ever got. I've still got my original copy. And just sort of opening that up and rediscovering stuff. I mean, you could say any magic book does that, but for me, just the nostalgia of expert card technique does it.
Is it something that you're constantly going back to for, or is it just purely nostalgic purposes?
No, it used to be, but I guess, kind of ashamed to say I've not picked up a magic book in a long time. I think because I'm kind of, I don't want to say too busy, but I don't want to become a copy of things in magic books. If I'm
Yeah.
writing a magic book myself or whatever, which I am, but it's taking a very long time, I feel like if I'm reading magic books, I'm then just sort of copying that. And again, like I said, originality is kind of really important at the moment. And so I just sort of want to see what else I can do. And if that's why I don't really watch any magic on YouTube. Again, I've spoken about this before. I don't watch magicians on YouTube because I make YouTube videos about magic, and I know that I would just start to become a carbon copy of what I'm seeing. So it's the same with magic books. Strangely, I hadn't really thought about that consciously, but I think that is the reason.
I think the previous episode, not the previous episode before this, it'll be two before this. I'm trying to think in my brain where the timeline is of what's actually released and what's coming out.
Oh gosh.
No spoilers. But Jeffrey Wang mentioned that when he is learning stuff, he doesn't often learn new things, but when he is, whether it's from a book or whether it's from a video, he will read it very quickly or he will watch it very quickly and then will immediately take it to his hands and be like, how can I apply this to what I'm doing? As opposed to watching it meticulously and just carbon copying, as you say,
Yeah.
which I think is a really interesting way to look at stuff. Because I know certainly in the past, especially when it's come to like books or things like that, I often take what I've read in a book, try and find a video of it online so I can visually contextualize what I'm reading. Because 9 times out of 10, my brain can't do that. But then I feel like you do sort of pick up techniques or like potentially bad techniques from people that have learned it from somebody else who's learned it from somebody else who learned it from the original source material, and then you got this like game of
Yeah.
whispers, and it's eventually gotten to what you're seeing, and you're seeing potentially something that's not remotely close. Whereas bringing it into your own hands and creating what works for you, I think is a really cool way to look at it.
Yeah, and equally trying to learn something exactly from someone else can be almost impossible because your hand will be different, your cards might be different if it's a card technique or whatever, but most importantly, you are a different person. So if you're trying to do a movement in a way that you wouldn't normally do that movement, and again, just thinking about the second deal, if you're learning a second deal and it means you have to relearn how to deal cards, well, you're doing it wrong. Like, it should be how you deal cards, but instead of the top one, you're dealing the second one. That's, in a way, that's the full tutorial for the second deal. Like just that sentence. Go and do it. Go and try it. And eventually you'll get there, and it will just feel natural. Now, dealing second deals for me is as natural as dealing normally. Because it's just become inbuilt. That's how I deal cards. So yeah, don't try and fit into a box you don't fit into.
I remember when I initially learned, for some reason, one of the first card slides I was like, I'm gonna learn this, was a bottom deal, and I learned bottom deals very early on before even like getting into grips and things like that. So my bottom deal would come from like the front edge, and then when I learned normal deals in seconds, it was then coming from the corner, and I was like, okay, well, I'm now gonna have to completely relearn how to bottom deal from like a normal position, which, as you say, is just an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, totally.
The next one is, do you have a particular favorite performance? In the past, I've specifically shaped this to magicians, but slowly over time I've increasingly opened that up to general performances like comedians, actors, things like that. But do you have a particular favorite performance that stands out in your mind that maybe you've taken a lot of inspiration from, or you just think is incredibly entertaining, or that you'd like to bring light to that you think other people should see?
I saw Luke Jamay do the Oracle act, and it was basically the whole show was that one trick. It was the same trick over and over again. And you know, in the Oracle act, for those that aren't familiar, the audience in a theater write down something on a bit of paper, put it into an envelope, put it into a little glass bowl on the stage, and in this case, Luke Jamay was taking these envelopes out, knew exactly what was in the envelope, was able to do these brilliant sort of in-depth, almost psychic readings for the audience, and you know, brought some people on stage. But that was the whole show, was taking things out of the envelope and saying what it was. And he had no earpiece. Everything was fair. It was one of the fairest, cleanest Oracle acts I've ever seen. And I did take a lot of inspiration from that. I did a very miniature version in my own show that I did on stage, the first show I ever did, which was about 2 years ago, called The Honest Psychic. And the whole show was kind of themed around psychic reading and, you know, the spirit world. And obviously the Oracle act has come from those days. It's a beautiful trick. It's one of the most fooling tricks, and I just loved it. It wasn't an exact carbon copy of Luke Jamay's thing, but you know, because I've seen Darren Brown do it, and often they're done very similar. But yeah, it's a beautiful routine. So I think I've got to say the Oracle act, just in general as a performance, but specifically Luke Jamay's one, which I think it was fantastic.
Yeah, I think like Q&A acts are so underdone in my opinion, but I think for good reason. I think it's incredibly difficult to frame what is such a, in theory, in looking at it, a simple concept. Here is a piece of information that I can't see. I'm discerning what it is, and I'm also giving an answer. Like, that as a concept, super simple. That as a performance piece, my goodness, to make that feel even remotely realistic or meaningful or actually resonate with people is incredibly difficult to do. And I mean, props to Luke for doing a full show of just that, because that is crazy.
Yeah. And it was like an hour and a half, I think, of that. But at times you'd forget that it was that, because there was sort of, you know, because of one bit of paper, it would go down this route into a different routine, and then it would sort of circle back to the bowl of questions. And I wrote a question, and mine was the last question in the first half of the show. And
remember what your question was?
Yeah, my question, because I was intrigued as to how he would handle it. So I thought, you know, if he doesn't want to answer it, you won't pick it out, right? Because that was my logic. So a lot of people were asking things that there was a definite answer to, which was fine, because it was like, you know, something about their life that they knew the answer to, but they wanted to see if he knew it. So I thought I would write something that I didn't know the answer to. So I wrote down, what university am I going to? Because it was quite a long time ago, and I'm still picking my university at that point. I didn't know where I was going for university. So I wrote that down. And his answer was, he picked it out and he went, you know, I'm looking for a Capricorn born on the 16th of the month. And I was like, oh, that is actually me. And then he just sort of obviously didn't open the paper, looked at me and went, Portsmouth. Does that make sense to you? And I went, yes. And then curtains closed. That was the end of the first half. And obviously everyone was then talking to me in the audience, were turning around going, what did Portsmouth mean? What was that? He didn't say anything else. He just said one word. Yeah. And I was like, well, I wrote down, what university am I going to? And they were like, oh, you're going to Portsmouth University. Now, I knew I wasn't, because that's a long way away from where I live. And I did not want to go to Portsmouth. That was not my thing. But I thought, I'll help him out. And I'll go, yeah, I want to go to Portsmouth. I didn't write that on the paper. So the audience were talking about it, going, how did he know that? Yeah. That's impossible, because I'd made it more impossible for him in a way. I'd like been a stooge, even though I wasn't asked, because in the halftime, people were talking to me like, what was that about? And I was just like, yeah, Portsmouth.
I think unknowingly that's a very common thing for audiences in those sort of psychic performances anyway. Like, without a doubt, I mean, the stuff that Darren's done on TV, exploring it and seeing other performances and stuff, a lot of people are bridging those gaps to create these impossible scenarios that just aren't remotely close to like sort of what was initially concepted.
Yeah, absolutely. But the instant stooge works because of that very reason.
Yeah.
People want magic to work. Generally, if they're going to a magic show, especially, they like magic, therefore they want it to work. So it's great playing with that idea, and possibly he knew that I would play along with that, and you know, because all he said was Portsmouth, does that make sense? Well, yes, it makes sense as an answer to the question. So I said yes. And you know, even if half time I was going, actually, that's not where I'm going. It still makes sense as an answer. So the answer makes sense. And I sort of helped him out by going, yeah, actually, that is where I want to go for university. Never considered it. Didn't go to Portsmouth. Went to Salford University, miles away.
I mean, it makes you wonder what would have happened if you'd followed Luke's advice. Went to Portsmouth,
exactly. Maybe he was right after all.
Where would you be
it's
now?
so clever of him to do that.
All right, incredible. We're going to take a little bit of a sort of deep dive into how you've become the person that you are, and that is through your influences. I think this is one of the questions that people tend to find incredibly difficult because we can't conceptually grasp everybody that's ever influenced us. But if you were to narrow down your influences to sort of 5 or 6 people, are there particular people that stand out in mind that have influenced the performer that you become today?
Oh my gosh. Crazy. I know, it's mad, isn't it? I'm gonna say the first one that comes to mind, as some of these aren't magicians, in fact, most aren't magicians.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
Film director, obviously.
Yeah.
Kind of just for the storytelling aspect. And I think he tells great stories and just masterful. And obviously in terms of making videos and stuff like that, you know, I went to film school at Salford, like I said, and so huge influence. Is this just to do with magic, I'm guessing?
This could be in general. This is how you've become the person that you are today. So this could also be, as you mentioned there, videography. It could be creating for YouTube. It could be performance. It's just sort of who has helped you get to the place that you are today.
Right. I'm going to say a couple of comedy influences then. And I don't consider myself too much of a comedian. I think I'm somewhat funny at times, hopefully. But I'm not a comedian, but I think comedy has kind of shaped my sort of sharpness and my wit almost. Yeah. I do consider myself quite witty, even though I'm not particularly funny. Like I'm able to be quite quick in like performance situations or just in general. So I'm going to say Mitchell and Webb. That's David Mitchell, Robert Webb, comedy double act. I got hooked on all their stuff, their sketch shows, Peep Show, all that sort of stuff. Darren Brown's obviously in there. I'm going to say another comedian, James Acaster. I think that even when I'm performing magic, I sometimes find myself almost saying things that he would say if he was a magician, obviously a completely different context and unrecognizably so, but it sort of feels almost a bit like that of like nerdy kind of tweed jacket and, you know, that kind of vibe. I don't know. Those are the ones that spring to mind. There are probably more, but I'll leave it there because I'm realizing that I could go on and on about loads of different comedians and people and so on. But that's a really interesting question to sort of break it down. But
especially when you start looking at influences from other places, like as you mentioned there, obviously Christopher Nolan's a massive one that people would just go, but he's a film director. How does that remotely affect your magic?
Yeah, exactly. But
when you look at it, as you say, from a storytelling point of view or from a framing point of view, like, and you really break it down. Again, this is something that Jack Rhodes mentioned a while ago. Looking at his routines like it's a YouTube video, and looking at how things are framed visually, where the hook is, where the retention could potentially drop off. Like looking at it from like a videography perspective or from a YouTube perspective, it's such an interesting way to look at that. And if we can take all of our influences and look at them from those different perspectives, like looking in, I think it'll massively change the way that you perform, whether you're doing it consciously or whether subconsciously you don't realize you've been influenced by somebody and you're doing that thing as is.
Absolutely. I mean, it's fascinating that sort of that Jack Rhodes mentality, because having seen his show, it did play out like a YouTube video. Like there were almost edits, and there was obviously a lot of video stuff involved, and there was sound effects involved and stuff. Like that is really interesting because I could kind of tell that almost that it was like a live YouTube video, which is really interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating.
It's really fun when you start looking back on things with like, obviously in speaking to a multitude of performers across this podcast, when they come to their influences and they start naming them, I'm like, yeah, of course, that's who you've picked.
Yeah.
Like, you can look at the performer and be like, yeah, I can 100% see that, which I think is really cool. And then looking back at their work and all of the stuff that they've talked about, you can go, I fully understand like how that framing has come about, which is super fun. We're going to take a little bit of a darker turn now.
Ooh.
And this is, what is your magic industry gripe? What do you believe does not belong in the community, or maybe is overperformed or overdone? Is there anything that particularly springs to mind immediately?
Is there anything that doesn't spring to mind?
Let's try and keep this to one,
question.
not five or six, because otherwise we could be here.
Well, again, anyone who's seen my channel knows I've got a lot to say. I'm going to keep it very simple and just say dishonesty or potentially just the lack of facts when it comes to magic products, promotion, marketing. Yeah. A lot of the time, you have no idea what you're buying when you buy magic products. A lot of people buy magic products to find out what it is or find out what it does or how it works. And that is basically the last reason you should be buying it. You should know all those things before you buy it. Yeah. Whenever I release anything, I always think, what would I want to know if I didn't know this? I want to know how it works. And often you can't. And so that's my number one gripe, is just this like gatekeeping of secrets among other magicians. Like, magician to magician, we're keeping secrets from each other. Yeah. How is that in any way going to help the art form? And obviously there's a certain way you should reveal secrets and certain secrets you should keep to yourself. There's a whole list of exceptions and, you know, rules that you've got to follow when you're doing that, which potentially makes it difficult. But keeping all the secrets, totally wrong, totally incorrect. We're holding each other back. So yeah, the lack of openness, I'd say, is the gripe I'm going to pick.
How does your opinion then apply to if a product that you're purchasing is specifically the secret? Like, you're not buying a gimmick, you're not buying like a specific thing, you are buying the methodology, you are buying the secret. How do you then think about that?
Then I think it's got to be a damn good secret, and it's got to be worth the money, because the number of times that you'll pick up a download for $10, $20, $30 that is just a download. So fair enough, it is just the secret. They can't say how it's done. And that's what I mean about the exceptions. That would be one of those exceptions. You can't just say how it's done, because then no one's going to buy your products. But it's got to be a damn good secret, and it's got to be a damn good product as well, because you pick up a download for $20 sometimes, and it's like a 10-minute video.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and it's not even shot that well. I'm like, a YouTube video would suffice here, guys. Like, who are we trying to kid? Yes, you wouldn't make as much money from it, but you're seriously selling that for $20? It's a video. Stick it on YouTube. Share the secrets. Share your love of magic. You clearly are doing this for the money above anything else. That really annoys me. Because the production quality of some of these things is so much worse than your average magic tutorial. So why have I spent my hard-earned money on this when I could have watched a free YouTube tutorial that might have been a trick that ends up in my repertoire? Just because it's on YouTube for free doesn't mean it's lesser. You know, people have that misconception as well. Yeah. So if you are doing that, fine. I've done it. And obviously I've got a membership where you can get loads of stuff that's just video explanations. You're buying the secret there, I suppose. But it's got to be a good value for money. One thing for $10, okay, make it a good $10 video. You know, like it's got to be good for that. You know,
I think if anyone's to take like sort of a deep dive into like production, my goodness, the stuff that Ben Earl is putting out,
especially
with the family or like his products, man, it's like a Christopher Nolan film. Like, every single shot is thought about. The framing's beautiful. The lighting's great. The sound's like, it sounds like Ben's just gently whispering in your ear as you're watching the tutorial.
Yeah,
which is a whole different feeling in itself. But like,
it is incredible, and I'd love more of that as well. I'd love more of that. Obviously, you know, everyone's got a different style, so you know, I know Craig Petty will sit in front of a whiteboard at a desk and talk unedited, and it looks nothing like a Ben Earl video, but you're getting something else completely different from that again is very knowledgeable, and you're getting a lot of content there. So it doesn't necessarily need to look beautiful, but it needs to have substance to it. If I'm spending my money on a download, it's got to have some substance. It can't just be, there's been some ridiculous ones where it's literally just like a flap card or something. It's like a download for $10, and it's just a guy teaching you how to make a flap card. It's like there are tutorials on YouTube that do that already. Like we don't need this, and it's just completely ridiculous in my opinion. Some of the audacity of these creators just feels absolutely insane.
I'm going to shuffle some of the questions about, because one of the questions later on applies now immediately.
Okay.
So I'm going to bring that further up. And that is obviously coming from somebody who regularly creates tutorials and discusses methods on the channel. What is your view on exposure? Is it as negative as some people in the community seem to think it is? Are there certain things, as you mentioned there's exceptions where like certain secrets should and shouldn't be kept? What are your thoughts on like actually teaching and exposing methods?
I love teaching magic. I don't do it as much because I think that tutorial content can get quite samey, and I do want my channel to be a channel rather than a program. It's a YouTube channel, not a YouTube program. It's not the same thing over and over. I want it to be a variety show, and so it is that. And so I do occasionally create tutorials, but it's got to be something original or public domain for me. These are my personal morals when it comes to it, and it's got to be something that is YouTube friendly. And I what I mean by that is not that it's ad safe and you're not going to get demonetized. I mean, it's got to be something like accessible to a general audience, which is a mistake I've made in the past. And I look back on some of my old tutorials, I'm like, that's definitely not just for public consumption. It's a bit too much. It's a bit like it's on a different level slightly. I'm trying to think of an example, really. Like I taught like a signature duplication on my channel, and I'm glad the secret's out there for free. Like it's a great secret, but it's not quite YouTube friendly. It doesn't quite just fit into the bracket that I think a YouTube tutorial should be, which is, yes, good quality magic, but something that is kind of easy and friendly and all those sort of things. Not necessarily easy, but just kind of, I don't know what the criteria is. It's hard to put my finger on it, but whatever
you can
it is,
kind of take it as it is and then go away and perform it within like a day or so.
Yeah, exactly. I can't quite put my finger on it, but something like that, something that's just kind of a one thing, I'm explaining it badly, but hopefully people kind of know what I mean, or maybe not at all. Maybe everyone's going, what are you talking about? But it's got to be that, and some in the past haven't been. But my views on exposure are, I think it's healthy to a certain extent, because it creates more magicians. I think we need more magicians. I think there's a severe lack of magicians, really, and magic would be stronger if there were more. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's up to the individual. I know there's been a big controversy recently about the masked magician revealing secrets on YouTube. I personally haven't ever seen any of his videos. I've seen videos pop up about this guy, and he's been unmasked or something like that. I don't know, something happened where he's been revealed.
There was a little bit of a witch hunt, which, to be fair, it was an incredibly interesting video to watch. This guy went through a different guy who's like a computer specialist.
Oh wow, yeah,
has some sort of background in that. Essentially went through like everything that was publicly accessible and found like photographs from his old Facebook and then matched them up to like video backgrounds and things like that, and then eventually got back to like, this is exactly who the person is, they're from this country. Like they really managed to get specifically to who he was, and it was a really interesting watch.
Wow.
But again, I don't know, like on an ethical front, like if that's maybe too far.
Do you think it's possibly
approaching
too
that
far?
person and being like, look,
what
you're doing is not particularly great for the magic industry, if that is the case, obviously, with revealing stuff that people are marketing and make their living from.
Right. Was that the case then? Because I don't know
I
too much
think,
about it,
yeah,
so I
a
thought,
lot of it
yeah,
was like marketed effects, if I remember
right.
correctly.
Well,
So
that you see, this is the issue: is that there's no law against that. There's no what he's doing. Okay, we might think it's morally not okay, but there's actually nothing to stop people doing that, which is
yeah,
a bad thing. There needs to be, I think, some system that stops people doing that. I know there was another magician a while ago, an illusionist, really tried to clamp down on it. They had a sort of bounty hunter system, they called it, where they were paying people to go and copyright claim these videos and take them down if they were teaching exposing marketed methods. Sorry, and that's an interesting way of going about it, but again, that's not legal either, because the actual content of the video, like the actual video itself, wasn't infringing copyright. It's an original video they filmed themselves. Yes, it's explaining a marketed trick, but you can't take down a video for copyright when it's an original video they filmed themselves. So it's a really tough one, because there's no copyright on a magic trick. Yeah, it's it's been a problem for years.
That's another thing that has been a big topic recently.
Well, oh my gosh. When it comes to a product, that's maybe slightly different, but a method, there's no copyright on a method. Obviously, when it comes to a product, that's a whole debacle in itself, with magicians, taking each other to court and so on. Mad stuff. And again, I don't think that's
out of that drama.
I know, exactly. I don't think that's productive for taking the magic industry forwards. So I'll add that to the gripes from earlier.
I feel like this gripe list could go on for
it'll just keep going, don't worry.
One thing that you touched on upon there was that your channel is very much a variety channel. And I think one of the most common piece of advice that people give to somebody starting out social media, or somebody starting out specifically YouTube, is to find sort of a format and a niche and sort of stick with that. Whereas you cover tutorial, news, discussions, reviews. Like, was that a planned decision from the start? Did you want this wide variety of things? And has it been easier or difficult to not sort of conform to that narrow format?
It would be extremely difficult for me to confine myself to one style of content, I think, if I tried to do that. And I have in the past. At one point I did think, because tutorials were doing really well. I mean, I had a tutorial hit 1 million views, and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Like that.
Yeah, I quite like that ad revenue paycheck. I might do more of that. And so I made some more tutorials, and they were doing really well. 100,000 views here, 20,000 views there. I was like, this could be really sort of interesting. I mean, it was happening sporadically at random. Some would just do as normal, and some would do way more.
The joys of social media.
Oh, exactly. There was no pattern or logic to it. And I think there was a time where I maybe made about 6 tutorials in a row, which for my channel is very unusual to have 6 of the same type of video in a row. I think it might be the only time that's ever happened, because I did think, let's just see what happens if I just do tutorials. And it worked quite well for a while, until I just got very, very bored of it. Very, very bored of it. And I thought, I've got to make something else. There's only so many ways I can make this different or interesting. I was adding little skits. I was adding little vloggy segments to the tutorials. I was, even within one genre, I was trying to stretch to do other genres. If I made a bottle through table thing, I was, using a bottle of Prime, and I had a little character pop up that was like the View Genie, and he was trying to get me more views by using Prime, because everyone was talking about Prime back then. I was, even little stupid things like that. I was like, I can't just confine myself to, hey guys, here's the trick, here's how it's done. That's too boring for me. I need something else. So yeah, no, it has to be a variety channel for my own sanity, really. I look at these other channels that just do tutorials, and I think, how do you do that? Like, how do you do that? I respect it a lot, but I could not do it myself.
Yeah. I think it's that fine balance between like mental sanity and what the algorithm craves.
Yeah.
I think the algorithm for social media is such like a big topic in general, especially in content creation. But as you say, I think the battle between conforming to the algorithm whilst also still being creatively sort of free is really difficult.
Just to go back to Christopher Nolan for a second, one of his kind of principles, or at least it was, I'm not sure if it still is he would do one film for them, one film for him. So he like
That's really
alternated.
cool.
So he would do a Batman film that maybe he's not as passionate about, but it would, do well in the mainstream
Yeah.
audience. And then he would do one for him. So he'd do, a passion project for himself. And then he'd go back to maybe doing another Dark Knight film or, whatever. He'd alternate. And I think maybe what he eventually found is he was happier just doing his own ones, and he didn't, once he got to a certain level of success, he didn't need to do the ones for them anymore. He just wanted to do the ones for him. But it's I kind of take that approach a little bit, not to the quite literal extent of alternating, but I do a few videos that are definitely for the audience. I mean, they're all for me because I enjoy making them all, but some are definitely more for the audience, and some are definitely just for me. That's like, I don't know if anyone will watch this, but I want to make it. So, tough. So, people will still enjoy it because it's something that I have made, and hopefully that all generally fits into some style that, people that like my content will like what I've made. But, ultimately it's kind of not really for the audience in the nicest way possible. It's just kind of for fun.
Yeah, I think you touched on a perfect point there in that you sort of find your own audience and you find your own community through the content that you make. So regardless of whether it's something a little bit different, hopefully in the fact that they've subscribed to watching you as a person, they are still going to enjoy the content that you're producing regardless of what it is, because they like watching you more so than they like watching specifically what you have to offer, which I think might be the case for a lot of those sort of big same format channels. Like people are just watching it for those things and not necessarily the person that's doing it.
I mean, some of them are just a pair of hands. Like that's all they are. They're a pair of hands and they teach the trick. People turn up, they want to learn the trick. If that channel tried to do a skit or tried to do something a bit different or a bit wacky, would people tune in? I'm not sure. Maybe some people would, but I hopefully have gathered an audience that are accepting of whatever rubbish I want to put up on YouTube. And believe me, there are some rubbish ideas that I want to make and turn into a real thing that probably will bomb and not do very well. But I'm doing it for my own enjoyment. That's the reason I started. It's still the reason I'm making it. I'd still be making videos if I had 100 subscribers.
It's those weird and wonderful things that often you find, like when you do them though, people go, wow, this is cool, and then you go, oh, okay. Like, I didn't expect that to be the reaction, but yeah, it's nice when people see what you've done for, like, and the passion comes through as well. Like, if it's something that you're genuinely, like, really excited about producing, you can feel that in the video. If it is just your 1800th tutorial, people can tell the second you turn that camera on and you go, and now count down to the 21st card. I think it resonates and people feel that, but as you say, it's that balance. Like, would making a massive shift be damaging? Would it be something that would be beneficial? But I think, it's nice to see a variety. Plus, it also means, like, I never know what I'm going to get when I'm watching one of your videos, which is quite a nice thing. It's nice to be able to be like, I don't really know what the next video is going to be. And then it's some random topic that I'd never, like, even think about. And then I watch the video and I'm like, wow, I really enjoyed that sort of deep dive on that topic, and it's not what I saw coming, but it was still very nice to see, as opposed to being like, okay, I know in 2 weeks' time Dave's producing another tutorial.
Exactly.
I'm gonna watch
And it's hard even as a variety channel. It's hard to. Sometimes I'll find myself just making the same videos as part of a series. I have a few series on the channel, which are like, reliable formats I can return to. So tutorials is probably the main one, if you want to call that a series. I've made more than 100 of those, so there's a lot of them, right? There's definitely a lot of them. But then there's vlogs and there's news and whatever, and it's very hard to break out of just doing those series. Every now and again I will go, right, imagine I forgot all of my video ideas. What would I make? If I just couldn't touch on any previous format, what would I make? And that's quite a nice little activity to just sort of come up with. And sometimes those are the videos that do the best. Just like, something unexpected, something random. And it's like, oh, this topic that, I've never thought about that. Let's click on that. Let's watch that. Those are the YouTube videos I enjoy the most, which is like, you see them on your homepage, your For You page, and you're like, oh, I never have thought about that topic, but let's just give it a go. Let's see,
and I think maybe that sort of viewership that's coming from that is because you're exploring topics that you normally wouldn't. and therefore you're not hitting the same audience that you normally would. You're not hitting the same pool of people. Therefore, you're getting more people coming in for this random and fun topic, and then they're like, okay, I quite enjoy this, and I quite enjoy this guy. I'm gonna stick around. Bam, hit that red button. Which is the be-all, end-all of YouTube. Is can we get them to press that lovely little red button and keep coming?
Exactly, yeah. That's all that matters in the world.
Same with podcasting, man. Can I get a 5-star review, and will people come back to listen?
Yeah, exactly.
And can it be thoroughly entertaining? Are the guests good? Is the content great? Is the edit perfect?
Oh no.
You know, just a few little...
Well, this might be the episode to skip then.
As I mentioned in season 1, there are tons of recommendations from the guests of new tricks, new books, new theories, new ideas that I always want to go back and delve into even more. And in order to do so, I need to buy those products. And where am I going to buy them from? MAGICBOX. That is the obvious answer to this. They have everything that I could possibly need and the expert knowledge to give me the assistance that I need to find exactly what I'm after. And using code PATCT at checkout, you can grab yourself 10% off your order. That's code PATCT to grab 10% off. On with the episode. We're going to hop into our annotated Erdnase segment here, which normally we'd look at a video of a performance, but what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at one of your products, one of the new Kickstarter products that's come out, which is let's start with the video.
Let's forgotten the name of it.
Spectrumental is what it's called.
There we go.
My brain did stop for a second there, but also, if you guys haven't seen what Spectrumental is, it's absolutely phenomenal. We're going to take a quick look at the tutorial. Not the tutorial, the trailer.
Oh God, I hope not.
Telling secrets again.
The masked magician unmasked.
We're going to quick look at the trailer, and then we'll talk about how this came about, what the process has been like. Obviously, releasing this as a Kickstarter and not just like a product through a general retailer.
Fuck this up. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's kind of crazy. Right, delectable dream. That's fucking insane.
Imagine being able to perform dozens of mentalism routines and dozens of visual magic tricks without switching prop. Everything with the same unassuming, examinable, recognizable, and yet instantly memorable object. Spectrumental allows you to do this. A big question for magicians is, how do you make memorable magic? And there's a few ways of doing it. The first is to use a memorable prop. The object you're using, if it's just something a little bit different, something they might not have seen before. I'm going to read your mind if that's okay. But I'm going to do a bit of an unusual thing. So you thought I was going to do a card trick, right?
Yes.
I'm kind of going to do a card trick, but also kind of not, because I'm going to not use a pack of cards. I'm going to use these pink cards from like a DIY shop. So,
Yes.
but also totally ordinary and immediately makes sense and allows for a spectrum of magical possibilities. Think about the first letter of it.
Yeah.
That's a C.
Yes.
Think about the second letter.
Yeah.
R.
Yes.
A random other letter somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
There's another C in this, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Think about the first letter once again. D.
Yeah.
Yeah. Think about the next letter. E. I'm gonna try and get the whole word here. Hold out one finger once again. Hold out one finger for me. Delectable.
Fuck this up. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's kind of crazy. Right, delectable dream. That's fucking insane.
With this in your
I'm going to stop the trailer there. If anybody wants to see the rest of the trailer, please do go see it. There's a lot more details on sort of what the product is, and obviously how to get your hands on it, which we will also touch upon. But I think what's particularly funny about that trailer, especially that last clip there, you can see the moment that the guy goes from, okay, I'm watching something, to, oh shit, this is about to get real. Like, you can see that switch, which is really funny to see. Obviously, Spectrumental, as we've seen in the video there, is an unassuming deck of paint swatch cards from a DIY store, which are obviously made in such a way that they help you perform absolute miracles, and you can obviously do card stuff with it, you can do mind reading with it. How did this concept come about as a whole, and how has the process of obviously releasing this on Kickstarter been in comparison to the likes of just releasing it either through yourself or releasing it from like a dealer's perspective?
Yeah, I never consulted a magic company about it. I never asked, to be perfectly honest, because I knew that I just wanted to do it myself. I knew that I would be very particular about how it was made and all that sort of stuff. Every little decision, I'm a control freak, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So I knew I wanted to do it all. So I didn't ask, Murphy's or any sort of big magic company. I've gone through them in the past and had good experiences. It wasn't that. This was kind of my thing. I was like, I want to do this. And I'd already been performing it for a long time before I released it on Kickstarter, because I had one myself and it was in my repertoire. So I almost didn't release it because a part of me was like, oh, I just kind of want this for myself. Like, this would be kind of cool just to be the only person performing this, which goes against all of my previous morals. So I was like, no, I am gonna release it. No point keeping this secret. And it was a great process. I'm still in that process currently. I'm making the final few sort of tweaks to the design and sending it off to the printers any day now, which will be very, very exciting. So yeah, it fully funded on Kickstarter. It's on pre-order on themagician.club, which is my website. And yeah, I loved making it, and hopefully it's the first of a few different Kickstarter things, because I do want to continue to do it myself. It proved to be successful. So yeah, hopefully it kind of leads on to other things in the future.
How did the concept initially come about? Obviously, at the crux of it, this is a deck of cards, but in the most unassuming way. And we touched upon this with Phil Smith in that it's really enjoyable putting magic things in like disguised circumstances, which I think is a lot of fun. I think if you can have like a plethora of objects that are like unassumingly magical, I think that's really, really cool. So how did it sort of come from? Were you just stood in like a paint store and you were like, maybe I could turn this into a mind reading thing? Or was it a concept that came from, this is a marked deck of cards, I could apply it to this?
It basically came from an idea of, like you say, wanting to disguise magic in something different. So having a pack of cards, and I quite like having the pack. And when I perform Spectromental, you kind of saw it then. I go, I'm going to do a card trick, but actually it'll be different to any other card trick you've seen before, because I'm not going to use a pack of cards. And they go, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I like starting with something that doesn't make any sense.
A hook. Again, back to YouTube.
And then they go, like, what? They kind of pay attention a bit more, because I've just said something that's complete nonsense. And then I bring out these paint cards and I go, look, I've got these from a DIY store. I'm going to do some magic with it. And as you heard, and the reaction generally is, oh my God, that's really cool. I think the woman even goes, yes, like, yeah.
People can immediately sort of resonate with what it is as well. They're like, oh yeah, of course. Like, I've seen these before. Yeah,
and it's instantly recognizable, and a lot of work. Before I added any magic stuff, I was like, can I just have designed a pack of paint cards? Can I do that convincingly? And so the first kind of prototype didn't really have any magic to it. I mean, there were a couple of double faces and double backers and so on kind of thrown in as an extra, but the base design was just, can I make it work as a pack of paint cards? And does it pass as that? You can still do tricks with it, obviously, just, selecting cards, controlling whatever, any trick you can think of, without any of the sort of marked or stacked functions or book tests and the stuff that is in the final product. Didn't have any of that. It was just cards. And it passed. It passed the test. People believed it. And so I thought, right, so now I can start to add the little extra things, the things that make the magic work, which I just touched on. And actually, even before that, sorry, I've kind of skipped a step. What I did is I wrote down a list of, I think, like 25 different packs of cards that aren't playing cards that I could hide magic in. And there were loads of different ideas, some of which have already been done. And paint cards even themselves have been done. There's some great tricks out there that use paint cards. That is by no means fully original, but there are a lot of interesting ideas. And I even had some that are sort of fully finished. And Spectromental was going to be one of two packs. Do I want to reveal what the other one was? The other one might be revealed at some point. But it was going to be one of two that kind of had, mentalism features built into kind of an ordinary looking object that was cards. Cards but not cards. I quite like that as an idea.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, especially like coming from card handler. Like, immediately you go, yep, this is a pack of cards. I can do everything I would normally do with this. But it then opens up that whole other realm of, okay, what can I do with this that's recognizable that people will resonate with? Like, people have known, like, going to the shop and being like, well, do I prefer this one or do I prefer this one? And looking at the swatches and, like, again, you can apply not only the story and the scripting and the formatting to that, but also then the effects that you do with Spectramental can also be based around that too, which I think's a really cool way to open up a whole world of possibilities outside of just any card at any number with paint swatches.
Yeah, exactly, and the temptation is to just start doing card tricks that you would normally do, but with Spectramental.
Yeah.
But the features that are built in there kind of allude to you not having to do that. I rarely do a normal card trick with Spectramental. There's like one or two that are basically just classic card tricks, but have a bit of a twist on them with the colors. But in general, you're performing color mind reading, you're performing the book test, you're performing the impossible object as kind of an erase impossible object where you wipe off part of the color and then you just hand it to them and they can't wipe off the rest. It's like, how did you get rid of that? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, there's some really cool little visual stuff. It's like mentalism and visual magic in one. That was kind of one of the goals, which is, I suppose, rarely done.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not something that's often touched upon. Mentalism, sorry, mentalists out there, is normally process heavy, hard, like deep, meaningful, as opposed to like quick, snappy visual.
Yeah, and that's always been a focus of mine, is because I do both. It's like, how can I straddle both? How can I go from super serious, yes, I know what you're thinking, and then hey, look at this card trick, guys. It's like, how do I go from both? And actually, this is a really great way because it straddles both. 1 second you're doing a mentalism trick with it, the next you're doing a visual trick with it, and it's the same prop. You don't have to change props. This is a full, a full set almost in one little pack of cards.
Like a multi-tool. It's like a versatile.
Yes. And the paint brand is called Multi-Tone, as a little alluding to that.
There we go. Do you have any other Easter eggs built into the cards? Just out of curiosity. I know a lot of people in the past have thrown little things in there, little tidbits.
Yeah, there's a couple of little, comedy references and stuff. Some of the paint names, I had a lot of fun with the paint names. Yeah. So there are some paint names that are, references to TV shows or poems, even just stuff that I like. I'm just like, and the paint names themselves, unfortunately, had to be quite specific because there's a system with the paint names where the name of one card tells you the color of the next card. So they're in a kind of stack. So they had to, start with certain letters or whatever. But within that, I still, threw in a couple of little references and stuff that won't be picked up on by anyone, but it's kind of the fun of the process. When you spend as much time designing them as I did, you kind of have to put some stuff like that just to keep yourself sane. Yeah.
And again, like now people picking up Spectramental can go, okay, Cavan mentioned that, like, can I find these cool little things?
One of them has already been found out because someone in YouTube comments like got one of the references. I just showed like a couple of cards, cool. And one of them had to, one of them they picked up on, so that was quite good.
Damn that person. If you do end up picking up Spectramental, please come back to this video and just pop a thing in the comments for you, like, I found this is really cool.
Oh, so yeah, definitely.
Can have like a little comment section of like cool stuff. Yeah. Cavan's never going to confirm or deny whether that's what it is.
No.
He might even just be throwing in red herrings here. This might not even be a thing. He might just be sending you on a wild goose chase. Of,
exactly.
These colours relate to something. Good luck, have fun. Obviously, you have the products that you have. You've got the Magician Club. You've got YouTube. You've got gigs. You've got live shows. How do you find a balance between all of that? You also have a job outside of Magic as well.
Yeah.
How do you balance all of this? And does it make you like really process sort of what you take on? Are you really particular about what you're picking and choosing doing because you have to fit it into this rather tight schedule?
Yeah, I mean, not to make it too deep, but my biggest fear in life is wasting time, which sounds like, oh, you know, wasting time, whatever. But I mean, like, I don't want to get to the end of a day, because days are finite, right? And not to get, again, too depressing about it, but I don't want to get to the end of a day and think, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And I do sometimes do that. I have days where I just get to the end and I'm like, I didn't really do anything. I didn't even leave the house. You know, I just sort of lounged about or whatever. But then I'll have other days where, yeah, you know, I'm doing a bit of writing. I'm doing a bit of show prep. I'm, you know, even if I've got a gig in the evening, or I'm doing a podcast or a video or whatever, and it feels productive. So the reason I do so much is because I basically have to. Like, in my head, I have to. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, it's this strange little thing. I'm sure there's a name for it, but I don't know what it is. I've got a very like obsessive personality. That's why, you know, magic has sort of taken hold of me, and other hobbies I have taken hold of me, and so yeah, I don't know how I balance it really. And to be honest, I do feel like I've got space for more, and I am trying more, and starting little side projects. I've got another YouTube channel where I make videos that aren't to do with magic. I'm working on like a character at the moment, which is like a different way of performing magic, which is quite interesting. Might not see the light of day, but it gives me stuff to do, basically.
Yeah.
You know?
I am exactly the same. So I resonate with that massively.
I think magicians are. I think it's a magician thing, you know?
I can't go a full day without, like, there's days where I just need to like switch off from the world, which I will take. Like, that has to happen some days, but like 9 times out of 10, I am either writing down ideas, or I'm doing stuff for the podcast, or I'm doing stuff for shows, or I'm doing like consulting things, or like there's always something happening.
Yeah.
And often my mum will be like, "Oh, you should nip over," and I'm like, "Yeah, I will at some point. I just need to figure out where on earth it's going in, like the chaos that it is." But I think to people, as you will know, looking from the outside, it looks like chaos and carnage because there's so much going on. But I think when you have that passion for all of the different things, it doesn't feel like chaos and carnage in the moment. It's just like, here's a really fun thing that I get to spend my time on, and I don't mind balancing it or spending the time on it.
And the great thing, since October last year, I went part-time at my other job. So I used to be full-time at the other job, Monday to Friday. That was what I did. And so all of the other stuff was actually just crammed into my evenings and my weekends. Now I'm part-time. It's like, oh, I've actually got more time in the week to do these things. So I do find myself doing more. And the joy is I can just pick. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, what do I fancy doing today? Well, there's some stuff I've got to do, like, you know, trying to get gigs and, you know, spreadsheets and tax returns and all that sort of boring stuff, right? No one really cares about. And then, you know, the rest of the time I'm like, I can just choose what to do. That's the freedom of it. That's the joy of it. I want to make a YouTube video, I can do it. It's like, it's so good.
Such a Phineas and Ferb outlook on life. Like, what are we going to do today? And then you just go do these crazy, wonderful things.
Little side quests. Yeah.
Yeah, entertained. Forever looking for side quests. We are going to move into a final sort of big segment. Then we'll wrap up with some questions about your plans for the future and where people can find you. But this final segment is our question deck segment. This is a completely normal deck of cards. There are less than
Let me
50.
Examine it. Let me shuffle it.
Yeah. Every time I've done this, I've been like, they're shuffled. There's no rough and smooth. I'm not forcing anything. I genuinely don't know what's going to come from this.
That's a great idea.
From this. The questions range from prolific life questions to utter bullshit, let's be honest. So
I can't wait.
I'm going to go through this, going to riffle down. We'll figure out what the question is, and we'll go from there. So at any point, you call out stop, and that's where we'll go.
Oh, sorry. Am I meant to? Sorry.
Yes, please. Otherwise.
Oh God, I didn't realize. Sorry, I thought you were going to stop. Right. I don't know why.
Yeah, you call out stop anywhere you want.
I'm not a spectator.
Wait, I'm part of this.
I was like, who else? Stop.
Perfect.
Upside
down.
There
we go.
What
is a moment in your career that deeply humbled you?
Deeply humbled me. Oh my gosh.
Prolific life question.
Oh yeah, no, I've got it straight away, I think. Oh, he's disappeared.
Sorry, I dropped like several cards on the floor.
I am a huge proponent of pocket management and organization and being super prepared and all that sort of stuff. And then in my stage show in 2024, my first one. It was just a one night only thing that I did. I just fully lost a prop on stage that I absolutely needed, and I had to look for it in front of everyone. It wasn't in my pockets. I was literally like, where I just had to ask the audience. I had no idea where it was. I was literally like, where have I put this thing, guys? I literally had to turn it into like a bit almost and make a joke out of it. And people were shouting out like, it's in the case, it's in that. And I was like, no, it's not. And someone was like, it's in your left pocket. And I was like, it's not in my left pocket. I literally didn't know where it was. And obviously with like 50 people watching, I was like, I just got to find it. There's no out. I don't have a backup for this. It's a one of a kind thing. And I used it earlier and I put it somewhere. And all that rehearsal, all that preparation, I was totally humbled. And it taught me a lot, but ultimately it was quite funny, but it was quite entertaining. So
I think, to be fair, I think the audience probably were like, okay, this guy's a real person.
Yeah.
Like, this shit happens to him too.
Yeah.
He's not this all-knowing being that's reading our minds and telling us what color our living room is. Like,
it was the contrast of like moments ago, I was telling people like, what their secret memories were they were thinking of. And I was like revealing them on stage, and then I didn't even know where.
I know everything that's going on. Where is this item that I just put
such
down
a contrast?
Somewhere?
Yeah.
It's like whenever you go into a room for something, the second you walk through the door and you go, what was I here for?
Yeah.
Is that but on stage?
Oh my gosh. Imagine that, but 50 people are shouting at you that it's in various places that it's not.
It's just rage baiting at that point.
Yeah. I found it anyway. You'll be glad to hear.
It's those lessons. Like, you're not going to learn about that scenario without the scenario actually happening. And there's no way you can like fully cover that. So
yeah,
fair play for pushing through it and learning from it.
Yeah.
The two final wrap-up questions are: what are your plans for the future? What do you have coming up? What would you like to be doing more of? Is there any other products on the horizon that you can tease us with? Is there any YouTube videos coming out that you can tease us with? What is coming up?
Well,
bearing in mind this will go out like 4 weeks from now.
Oh, in that case, so this has been announced about 4 weeks ago. But I am going on tour. I'm doing a UK tour of my stage show. I say tour, kind of a 2-date tour with Edinburgh Fringe tacked onto it. So 8 shows in total. In August, I'm doing Edinburgh Fringe again with in a bigger venue, which is quite exciting because obviously it sold out last time. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll do similar this time. And it's a new show called the Improv Magic Show, which is a bit of a weird title. It sounds terrifying. I'm sure it will be terrifying. I'm pretty terrified for it, to be honest. I don't know why I've signed up to do it. But yeah, it's going to be in Edinburgh in August, and then in October I'm doing a date in Manchester and a date in London, which is very exciting. I'm still not used to quite saying it, but I'm doing more stage stuff, which is really exciting.
Where can people grab tickets for these? Obviously, this will have been announced a long time ago, and chances are people have already got the tickets. But if anybody's slacking and they're falling behind,
well, it won't have sold out, so don't worry. CavanBooth.com. If you go to cavanbooth.com/shows, or you just go on and click on shows, you'll be able to get all the tickets for everything I've just said there. Oh, I'm kind of shaky. I'm jittery as I'm talking about it, but it's an improvised
as
magic
a whole
show.
Is terrifying. Never mind improvised magic. Like, that concept sends shivers down my spine. Never mind your.
I think magicians will like it for maybe different reasons than lay people. I think lay people, it'll be quite hopefully an entertaining thing to watch. But I think magicians will be seeing it in a very different way, which will be interesting. But obviously, it's designed with lay people in mind. That's who it's designed for. But I just think magicians will find it interesting for a different reason.
Incredible. Well, I am hopefully going to be able the Edinburgh Fringe this year, so I will certainly come along and see it. I'm very much looking forward to that. I will be shouting when you lose a prop on stage. At the place definitely not. It's on the ceiling. It was in an envelope all along.
Yeah.
Where can our listeners find you? Obviously, you mentioned your website there. Are there any particularly prominent socials? Obviously, you have your YouTube. where can our listeners come to see what you're doing, the things that you're doing, and the content that you're creating?
I mean, yeah, YouTube's a great place. I'll often announce stuff on there. Instagram, if you just search Cavan Booth, there's only one of me. I think there was like a serial killer a few years ago called Cavan Booth B, but that's not me.
Close.
Yeah, close. But yeah, Cavan Booth is only one off. So I don't know, search that and I come up. Is that a good way of promoting?
Yeah, perfect.
Just the age-old Google search. Yeah.
Excellent. Incredible. Well, thank you so much for dedicating your time today. It's been an absolutely incredible conversation and a deep dive into how your brain works. And I know certainly I've taken a lot from this, and hopefully the listeners at home have too. So again,
thank you very much.
So much for tuning in. Obviously, the listeners at home, check out everything that Cavan's doing. His videos are incredible. Obviously, the Kickstarter, which no doubt I'll have linked below if you want to pick up Spectramental. Please do check it all out. If you have enjoyed the podcast, let us know. Leave a review, drop a comment somewhere.
Yeah, well, if you're here because of me as well, then you need to do everything that you're doing for the podcast. Subscribe, 5 stars, all that sort of stuff. If you're here because of me, check it out because it's great stuff.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Obviously, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye.